We are finally able to call this September the 11th, 2017 meeting of the Public Safety Committee to order. Before we go about our regular course of business, I would like to pause for a moment in honor of those who lost their lives in the attacks on September the 11th, 2001. So if we'll just pause for a brief moment, please. We certainly honor those brave men and women and their families. Also, we'd like to thank the community members for tuning in, those who are in the chamber, and both those who are watching in TV land. We'd like to thank the city staff for the work they do for those community members. We'd like to honor our city manager and the city manager's staff who is here, Mr. Rao and Mr. Turner. We also have a city attorney's office led by our city attorney, Attorney Carmen. Also our public safety attorney, Attorney Sykes, who is normally here, who's probably hiding in the corner. We also have our public safety departments. I'd like to recognize Mr. Mill Sadler, who's in charge of the emergency management department. We have our chief of fire, Chief Mayo, here with our brave men and women in the fire department. We also have some representatives from our police department here, led by our new chief, and this is her first meeting of the Public Safety Committee. I'd like to recognize Chief Thompson. Welcome, and we look forward to a great, long-lasting relationship. So thank you for what you do for our community. We have several items on the general agenda. There's an item recognizing Mr. Aaron Patrick. There's consideration of an item pertaining to the 2017 Byrne Justice Assistance Grant. There's a resolution authorizing the acceptance of a grant from the North Carolina Governor's Highway Safety Program. We'll have a presentation by our Winston-Salem Police Foundation for Sweet Reads. Members of the committee, item G5, it's my understanding that we have a need to pull that and bring that back to our October meeting. So without objection, we will pull G5 and move that over to October. There is also a consent agenda. Items on that consent agenda are approved by a sweeping motion unless a member of this committee wishes it to be pulled for consideration or discussion. We have a need to pull item C1. It's my understanding, members of the committee, that finance has asked that this item be put out for another month, and we'd actually the same thing happen here without objection in public safety. So with C1 being pulled into next month, are there any items that should be pulled for consideration? I'd entertain a motion.
Motion to approve the balance.
There's a motion to approve the balance. Is there a second? All right, it's been motioned and properly seconded. All in favor, please vote on your keypads. Yes. Opposers, likewise, no. The consent agenda is approved unanimously with item C1 being pulled into next month. Item G1, please.
Item G1, recognition of Aaron Patrick.
All right, giving us a brief presentation before we recognize Mr. Aaron Patrick is our Chief of Fire. Chief Mayo, you have the floor, sir.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Madam Mayor Pro Tem Burt, members of the committee.
Good afternoon.
Wanted to just introduce to you this afternoon Captain Aaron Patrick. Captain Patrick, if you'll come up.
You thought you were going to get away. No, sir.
Not that easy.
No, I didn't hear me.
Not that easy.
So Captain Patrick, I'm proud to say, is the first member of the Winston-Salem Fire Department to have completed the Managing Officer program at the National Fire Academy. That's a 2-year program. He goes up for 2 weeks. It's an in-residence delivery at the National Fire Academy in Emmitsburg, Maryland. It's 2 back-to-back classes. They're 6-day classes. So he goes up for 2 weeks, does 2 6-day classes, comes back, then goes up the next year and does 2 6-day classes back-to-back. And then at the end of the second year, there's a capstone project that he must complete successfully in order to earn his certificate from the program. But again, because he was the first person from the fire department to have completed that program, I thought that was worthy of note, and I wanted to bring him before you this afternoon. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. And I'll let him say a few words.
Captain Patrick.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Good evening.
I just appreciate the opportunity to go get training on a national level, and it's something that I'm passionate about. Is the role of the company officer. I feel like it's one of the most important roles in the fire department, and just glad to be able to represent my family, my department, and just bring back some knowledge and share with those coming behind me.
Well, Captain Patrick, it seems like you're a man of few words, but we certainly appreciate the words that you offered. We thank you for your service to the community, and you certainly bring honor to our city. Members of the committee, would you have any words for Captain Patrick? I recognize Mayor Pro Tem Burke.
Well, I'm
and
just
Mr.
going to
Larson.
say congratulations and thank you. But for the record, for history to come, make sure he gives his name so we'll know out of his own voice.
Name and address,
Well,
right?
please, Captain Patrick, as we do to everybody else, would you give your name and address for the record, please?
My name and address, Aaron Van Patrick. My address is 945 Buckhorn Court.
Councilmember Larson.
Captain Patrick, congratulations. I think you underplay the commitment that reflects on your own personal part, that you would commit to that amount of time and that amount of effort for the betterment not only of yourself, but for the whole fire department that you represented outside of the city and the standards that you're setting inside the city to help protect our people. And I really appreciate that personal effort on your part to complete that training.
Members of the committee, would you join me in giving Captain Patrick a round of applause? Thanks again, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you, Chief.
And they look very well in their attire, don't they?
Yeah, very
Nice.
nice.
I don't know what to say. But Item G2, please.
A woman of
Item
fashion.
G2, consideration of items pertaining to the 2017 Byrne Justice Assistance Grant.
I'd like to give us a little information on item G2 is our Chief of Police. Chief Thompson, you have the floor, ma'am.
Thank you, Chairman Taylor, Mayor Pro Tem Burke, members of the Public Safety Committee. This item allows us to accept a grant of $184,875 in funding from the U.S. Department of Justice. As part of this Justice Assistance Grant, this amount is half of the $169,750 total grant that we will split with the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office. Prior to receiving the funding, an interlocal agreement must be submitted to our Justice Department.
All right. Any questions for Chief Thompson?
I've already raised the question in finance, and I'll continue to reinforce it. My understanding is that the recommendation from the feds was that this not be a 50-50 split, but that we've worked out an agreement with the county to allow us to equally share in this amount of funding. Is that a correct assessment?
That is correct, Councilmember Larson. As part of the grant funding release, both department heads, so in our case, the police chief and the sheriff's of Forsyth County, must agree to the amount. And this has gone on for several years, and the only amount that both agencies can agree to is 50%.
So if we gave up ours, they would lose theirs. Who actually prepared the grant? Who actually wrote and submitted this grant?
It is submitted by our director of budget.
Budget finance.
Budget.
So is that a county city position, or is that a city position?
It's both. I'm sorry. It's us as well as them.
It's a joint city-county
That is
position.
correct.
So the preparation of the grant was jointly prepared by
That
the
is
city
correct.
and the county. Right. Thank you. Congratulations on getting the grant. Well done on that, and we're happy to have 50%.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Is there anything else further, Chief Thompson?
No, sir.
All right, members of the committee, if there are no further questions, I'd entertain a motion electronically, please, and a second. All in favor, please vote yes. Opposers, likewise, you have the ability to vote no. Item G2 is approved unanimously. Thank you, Chief Thompson. Item G3, please.
Item G3, resolution authorizing acceptance of a grant from the North Carolina Governor's Highway Safety Program for an 8-year funding of the Forsyth County Joint DWI Task Force and authorizing execution of an interlocal agreement between the City of Winston-Salem, the County of Forsyth, and the Town of Kernersville to accept grant funding and execution of a mutual assistance agreement between the same parties for continued implementation of the DWI Joint Task Force.
Chief Thompson.
Thank you. This item will allow us to accept a grant in the amount of $132,154 from the North Carolina Governor's Highway Safety Program to support our continuance of the DWI Task Force. If you remember, the Winston-Salem Forsyth County DWI Task Force was implemented in October of 2009 with the mission of strict enforcement of impaired driving offenses and public awareness and education component describing the dangers of impaired driving. Our task force also consists of personnel from the Forsyth County Sheriff's Office, Kernersville Police Department, and new this year, the task force also added a trooper from the North Carolina State Highway Patrol. Winston-Salem Police Department is the lead agency, and we provide supervision of the task force. Earlier this year, the Winston-Salem Police Department Sergeant Mike McDonald was named the DWI Task Force County Coordinator of the Year by the North Carolina Governor's Highway Safety Program. And I'd like to remind you also that our task force was named 2016 DWI Task Force of the Year by the state program. Just as an example for the excellent work by the task force, in August of 2017 alone, we have 46 DWI arrests, seized 9 vehicles from the repeat DWI offenders, and seized 5 guns that will be removed from our streets. This year, as we've been in previous 2 years, our task force has been invited to participate at the North Carolina Fair, educating North Carolina residents on the hazards of impaired driving. Our task force provide a high level of value to citizens of Forsyth County in keeping our roads safe from drunk drivers.
Chief, I'm extremely happy that we're the lead agency on this task force. I know that you and your department are very capable and willing to do so, and I'm happy that we're continuing to partner with other agencies. It says a lot about what we're doing here regionally and interlocally. Members of the committee, I almost called you representative. Councilmember McIntosh, please.
Wish that on me. Does the fact that we were number 1 say that we're better police or that we have more drunks?
Better police, I'm sure.
Or some combination?
I think what to us it represents is the fact that we are a lot more cognizant and paying a lot more attention to the driving mannerisms on our road, and our officers are extremely skilled and trained in recognizing drunk driving behaviors on our roadways.
That's what I wanted to hear. Thank you.
Feel better?
Yeah.
All right. Councilmember Larson.
Yeah, let me just understand how this functions. It's a joint initiative between the City of Winston-Salem, Kernersville, and the county. All parties are putting in officers dedicated to this program.
That is correct, as well as this year we have a state trooper.
And a state trooper. And I understand that jurisdiction lines aren't applicable for this particular application,
That is correct.
so that our policemen can make arrests in the county and whatever is
In
appropriate.
Kernersville.
Yeah. So it is a very effective program, and this was initiated out of your department.
Yes, sir.
Congratulations
Thank
on
you.
that. Great job, and it should be effective, and thank you for doing that. This is a great program.
Thank you, Mr. Larson. Is there anything further? Thank you, Chief Thompson. Members of the committee, I think this is once again an action item. If we need a motion and a second on the floor, please feel free to do that now electronically.
So moved. No second.
All in favor, please vote yes. Opposers likewise. It's been moved by Councilmember McIntosh, seconded by Councilmember Larson. It did not come up, but I am sure that is unanimous.
I think we got unanimous.
Sounds unanimous. Thank you. We'll move to item G4, please.
Item G4, presentation for Winston-Salem Police Foundation, Suite 3.
All right, giving us a little bit of information about the program is the chair of the Winston-Salem Police Foundation, Mr. Scott Sewell. Chief, and I don't want to circumvent you. Is it okay to recognize Mr. Sewell at this time?
Yes. I just wanted to, I wasn't sure if everyone was familiar with Mr. Sewell, so I wanted to share with you a little bit of information about him. Scott Sewell is the president of the board of directors for the Winston-Salem Police Foundation, as you mentioned. He is also the vice president of technologies acquisition and development for Cook Medical in Winston-Salem. Cook Medical has been a great partner with the Winston-Salem Police Department and has supported us in our community efforts. Scott Sewell is here today to discuss with you a proposal that will help the Winston-Salem Police Department continue to build trust in our community while playing an active role to prevent the youth in our community from being caught up in the preschool to prison pipeline by providing and promoting reading opportunities.
Thank you, Chief Thompson. Mr. Sewell, And as you come, if you'll give us your name and address for the record, and I just want to say we appreciate the good work that you're doing in our community, and it seems like you are continuing to get things done. So thanks again.
We're trying. Thank you. I'm Scott Sewell, 4900 Bethania Station Road, Winston-Salem, North Carolina. And Chairman Taylor, Mayor Pro Tem Burke, fellow committee members. I'm actually honored to be here tonight, and I'm honored, and I have Justin Gomez, one of our board members, is also here representing the foundation. But we are all honored to work with the police department. So, Operation Sweet Reads. I'll tell you how it happened. I was on a website one night. It was the St. Louis Police Foundation. And by the way, I have hard copies if you want of the actual truck. But I was on the website, and they had an ice cream truck. And I thought, wow, that is so cool, having a police department having an ice cream truck that goes into neighborhoods to try to bridge the gap between children and police officers. I also went onto the Boston Police Department website, and they had the same thing. Around the same time, we received a grant from the Flow Foundation for books, and they gave us money to buy books. So we were thinking, well, we just didn't want to give out books. So how could we make an impact with our community? As you know, programs like Project Impact, where we're trying to raise the level of third grade readers to a third grade reading level, we wanted to also try to make that difference. So we came up with the idea of having a ice cream truck / bookmobile, where when this truck went into the neighborhoods, all garbed in, police logos, things like that, kids came over, officers gave them ice cream. We have a way of getting the kids onto the truck, and in the truck they'd be read a book by the police officers. So that's really what the program is, and at some point in time they'll also get a free book to take home with them. So the program itself is, we've raised the money for it. You have a picture of it right there. We're ready to go with it, and we think it's just a wonderful opportunity to really do two things. One is bridge the gap between officers and children, and two is do our fair share in the community to try to help children read and see all the positive advances that reading can give them in their future. So what we'd like to do is once we build the truck, is to donate the truck to the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Sewell. Are there any questions for Mr. Sewell about Sweet Reads? Mayor Pro Tem Burke.
I was just going to make a comment as a person who used to work in education, and then hearing so much about the lack of students finishing school, and also looking at some of the children I represent. In fact, several schools actually in North Hills is part of mine, actually is all of mine, and these are the schools that the state may be looking at and making them charter schools. And if children cannot read, they can't pass. And they learn how to read in the early grades, not when they get in middle school, but when they go to kindergarten. And if we could just appeal through your effort, as many people who would go into these schools and just pick a child and start helping that child to learn to read. What we have to keep in mind is that so many of these children's parents that we're talking about, they don't have to read or do math. So we're at a serious time in the United States with education. And instead of us talking about what they can't do, we're going to have to see what we can do. And I want you to know, anytime I hear anybody talking about helping our youth, because when people start looking at our city to come visit, they look at the education level. When companies want to come, but until we get opportunities for people to be able to successfully finish high school and get in some type of course that they can get a job. So I thank you so very much. It touches me to my heart when I think about children where they are today. I had the opportunity on Saturdays to be with a group of people who finished Paisley in 1967, 50 years. And Councilman Adams and we talked about how good they looked. You could tell that they got education. They told about what they had done. Some had retired and some were still working. But the quality of education that they got with the support from parents and people made them these productive citizens, and we can do it again. I do believe if we put ourselves together in unity and work to lift these children up. and I thank you again.
Thank you.
Councilmember McIntosh.
I want to thank the foundation and Mr. Sewell for recognizing that opportunity and kind of putting two and two together and come up with a really cool thing for the community. Also, I was at an event Friday night with Mr. Sewell and at least 150 officers over at Fairview Moravian. I think we as a community try and do a really good job of making community-oriented policing a reality. I think a lot of people pay lip service, but I think the community and our law enforcement force here really do make the effort to get out and get involved and meet people for the first time, not when there's a situation in progress. And I think that just pays benefits for both our police department and our community, and I think efforts like this just go a long way towards helping with that. So thank you very much.
Councilmember Larson.
I'll just add my enthusiasm for this. Do I get to vote on which van we want to have?
I want the yellow one.
I'd like number 2. The word free is really prominent on there. Free ice cream. I mean, it's guaranteed to bring crowds in. No, I mean, it's a win-win-win. How much is this van going to?
It'll cost us between $125,000 and $135,000.
$135,000 you're going to raise and give this to the citizens of
Yes, sir.
Winston-Salem. You are the best. Thank you so much for that.
May I just say something?
Mayor Pro Tem Burke.
When I heard that the Flow had given money to the police department, and they were talking about reading, and I said to someone, they can give all the money, but if you don't really have a purpose and someone who's going to motivate and do something with it, and then to give these books along with it, it's a very good incentive.
Thank you. If I can just say one thing.
Mr. Sewell.
I was honored to work with Chief Roundtree, and Chief Roundtree started the Police Foundation and was a tremendous advocate for community policing. And I'm also honored to work with Chief Thompson. We've had a conversation over the past couple of weeks, and she's also very enthusiastic about it. So we're excited to work with Chief Thompson, and we're excited about what this possibly can do to with our community. Thank you.
And Mr. Sewell, this is a complete collaboration in our community, and it sounds like the committee is appreciative. You guys are private citizens that have stepped up to serve on this foundation, working with the police department, working to serve the youth in our communities in and out of the Winston-Salem County school system. So this is certainly something that we will take note of, and we will be noted for. So thank you for the work that you will do, that you've done, and you'll continue to do in our community. And it sounds like this is not an action item, but this has complete and full support of this committee. Mr. Garrity is recognized.
Chairman Taylor, at some point, we will need to bring an action item just for council to actually accept the truck. We could do that next month. But clearly, council is in full favor of doing that, is what I'm hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Garrity. And Mr. Sewell, what I always say, it sounds like you had us at hello. Councilman Lawrence.
I do hope that somewhere along the line, if I could hold this up, people could actually see the truck, because it's so cool. Newspaper men, take a look at the image here, because I think everybody would really enjoy. It's just plain fun. Thank you.
Thanks again.
Thank you.
Members of the committee, is there anything that should be brought further for the good of the order? Seeing nothing further, we'll hereby consider this meeting of the Public Safety Committee to be adjourned. Thank you.